Today we'll be looking at Genesis chapter 46 as, the family of Jacob reunites with his Jacob and his son Joseph down there in Egypt. Genesis chapter 46 can be divided into mostly three sections. One being that Jacob's final encounter with the Lord, account of all of Jacob's descendants at or around this time. And finally, Jacob's reunion with his son, Joseph, in the land of Egypt. Jacob and his large family set out with all they own for the land of Egypt. As wealthy people, they would be driving many sheep and cattle, as well as bringing all the wives, children, and goods in wagons provided by the Egyptian king at the time called Pharaoh. Before leaving the Promised Land of Canaan, however, Jacob stops, or he makes a stop at Beersheba to offer sacrifices unto the Lord. You may as well say, to worship or seek God's advice. In response, God spoke to Jacob. He referred to him in this passage using his word or his God-given name, which is Israel. That name was earlier on given Jacob sometime back in Genesis 35, specifically 35 verses 10. If you haven't watched episode 35, please pick it up on our YouTube channel by simply searching for the Yando Abdi Ministries. So God told Jacob that he should not be afraid to move down to Egypt with his family. In other words, he should just go ahead. God continued and promised him that it will be with him, that will make him a great nation of Israel, and even while he was in Egypt. Finally, God sweetly told Jacob that his once lost son Joseph will be the one to close his eyes in death. We'll find that in verses 1 to 4. Literally what it meant is that it will be Joseph actually to, bury him, or he will be around at the time. Joseph would be around at the time of Jacob's dying. Now, this blessing from God finalized Jacob's move out of the land of Canaan to the land of Egypt, and marching slowly into that place. The next section, however, Genesis poses the narrative to report account of all the descendants of Jacob around the time of their move to Egypt. Now, the sons and grandsons, as well as the two women, are listed according to each of Jacob's 4 wives. Jacob had 4 wives, 2 official wives, and then, of course, the 2 concubines, which sort of brings the total of the official Israels, including Jacob, Joseph, and Joseph's 2 sons, to approximately 70. Now, in the Old Testament, 70 is sometimes associated with completeness. We could find a bit of that in in Exodus 24, verses 9. And then Jeremiah, we could find something to do with that also in Jeremiah 29:10 and Daniel 9:24. Now, to reach this number, some scholars believe that some descendants, such as the children of Benjamin, were counted early to include the entire second generation of, after Jacob. We'll find that bit of it in verses 8 to verses 27. Now, Genesis then resumes the active part of the story as Jacob and his family arrive in Egypt, in a region which were later on given to them called Goshen. That's sort of the place they settled in, and they grew up their families. Now, this was likely a very fertile area along the River Nile. River Nile is right here in Uganda, Ginger. That's where the source is. So it was really good for farming, but also good for for their animals. Really, the animals had beautiful grass, and it was a fertile place. Or at least you would say it would be once the terrible famine was over. So Joseph, he mounted up his chariots, and he moved them to that place, Goshen. He has not seen his father in more than 20 years, give or take. And the reunion is every bit as emotional as one could actually expect. I mean, after 20 years, you've not seen your dad, and your dad expected you to have been dead. Yourself, you have no idea what actually your dad is thinking at the time, so you could really imagine the kind of reunion these guys had. And how Joseph embraced his dad and he sobbed for a very long time. Same with the dad. Jacob reports that after seeing Joseph alive again, he's now ready to die. He's the kind of person who usually makes those ridiculous statements. Earlier on, he said he's ready to die, but finally, hey, good thing that he didn't die immediately. It took him about another 70 years while he was in Egypt before he actually died. Anyhow, finally, Joseph began, prepping his brothers for an audience with Pharaoh. He told them to answer Pharaoh's questions about the occupation. Joseph urged them to say that they are lifelong shepherds and herdsmen, as were their fathers. In one sense, this is likely meant to reassure other Egyptians that these newcomers were not going to take resources from the local culture, but also not to have competition with them, especially when it came to, working. So they were more than, capable of providing for themselves once the famine was over. Interestingly, Joseph states that the Egyptians have some sort of special dislike for the shepherds, although it is not revealed why shepherds are so detested in Egypt. The result is that foreigners in Egypt are often given the role of herdsmen. Now, this might have been Joseph's way of ensuring that his people would be tolerated, but not fully absorbed into the pagan Egyptian society. Uh, we'll find about that a bit of details there in 31 to 34. Now, the next chapter, which is 47, will describe Joseph's family meeting the ruler, that is Pharaoh, and their settlement in the land of Goshen. That's it. That's a bit of the summary of Genesis chapter 46. To pick the details of this episode, please log on to YouTube and search for our YouTube handle, that is Abdi Ministries. You could also find the same on Spotify by simply searching for the same Abdi Ministries, or you could simply go to our website, that is www.abdiministries.org. If you're watching me online, you could as well just scan the QR code that is on your screen. It will take you directly to our channel so you can get more details.